Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Devin Sizemore, connector, speaker, consultant, author of Connection Expansion. You are one connection away from massive success in your life and business. Welcome to the show, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Devin. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you the art of connection and referral system and everything around that. But before that, Devin, let's learn a bit more about you, your background, your journey, so that the audience learns a bit more about who they are listening to.
Yeah, definitely. I always appreciate that because you never want to listen to someone you don't know. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I always start there. I've owned everything from a marketing agency to a manufacturing company, a co-working space, a cat cafe. And I've been in consulting in various forms for the better part of 15 years. And then with all that, I've worked with around 600 businesses on sales growth, consulting strategy, streamlining systems and processes. So lots of variety, lots of industries, and just love business.
Just love business. Wonderful. So, Devin, I want to understand about this networking thing, about this connection thing. You are one connection away. Earlier, they used to talk about this whole 6 degrees of separation, six connection, and now you are reduced to one connection away. Help us understand about this one connection thing. What is this? If I knew that one connection will take you to many places, I would perhaps take the name of either the Prime Minister of my country or the President of the United States, but none are within my reach. Help us understand about this one connection.
Yeah, so the framing behind the book is this idea that if you approach network building and relationship building strategically, every single person you meet has value and can open a door for you that is valuable. But most people approach networking and relationship building with the wrong goal, with the wrong approach, with the wrong language, and they don't get the results they're looking for. And thus you end up with the referral dilemma, which is asking for things, trying to chase referrals, trying to chase introductions, and not really getting that response from your network. So this approach talks about how do we build real meaningful relationships? And then you'll be surprised at in your current network and in the network you'll build, how close you are to those dream connections, how close you are to those really big, impactful introductions that can really move the needle for you, for your business, for those around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Devin, so tell me one thing. How do we start building this sort of connections? Because earlier now, if we look at this model, in the multi-level marketing, that is also building connections. And those are one connection, and one connection, and it makes many connections. But they don't seem to have developed that sort of credibility that they desired. In everywhere, people ask a lot of questions. There are memes around it. People have, funny things to say about all those things. People are afraid when they hear about it. So help us understand about how is your one connection different than those MLM schemes? How do you actually sound sincere? And tell us a bit, how do you actually execute this part on the ground?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few things. So I'm gonna hit a lot of content. So interrupt me or stop me, but we'll kind of start driving as much value as we can now. So the first thing is the goal. When we're networking, building relationships, doing anything in the relationship development world, I'll typically ask a room or I'll ask the audience, what's your goal? And the answer is usually some sort of client-focused answer. I'm looking for this type of ideal client or this type of prospect. Great, right? You should understand that. You should have clarity there. You should be able to identify them with some key triggers. But the issue is if that's our full focus, we go into these environments trying to sell, trying to find clients. Those are kind of the two motives that are operating. Instead, I want you to go through what I call the connection expansion exercise, where Yes, we identify that ideal client, but we scale to who has access to that ideal client. What are the vendors, the influencers, the educators, the consultants, the strategists? Where do they gather? Where can we get in front of groups of our ideal clients? This leads us to being able to shift our ask. So if you ask me, hey, Devin, who do you want to meet? Instead of me responding with my ideal client, I can respond and say, hey, I want to meet business CPAs, because business CPAs have access to business professionals. They also know their finances. They might be able to make strong introductions for me. What's great is if we shift that mentality, we're shifting our ask and we're shifting how we approach rooms. Because we do that, it changes the friction with an ask. So if I ask you, hey, send me a referral, it's really hard for you to make that referral introduction because there's this idea that you're going to be sold. And the quote I tell everyone to put on their monitor is, everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold, right? No matter what market you live in, no matter what country, we are taught to consume, right? So you don't need to do that, right? Your ideal client and prospect is ready to buy. You just need to be positioned, introduced, and become an authority to them. And so this approach goes from stop asking for that direct client referral. Let's start asking for these strategic relationships. That shift in ask changes the motive. It changes how you approach the rooms. And then it goes to the core principles, which I talk about, one of which is there's value in every relationship. And so every single person you meet can open a door or has value for you, because you don't know who they know. You don't know what they do. You don't know what's going on with them. And so that's a lot of the framework. The other thing is you have to stop selling. So often we end up in these networking conversations and you try to get to selling and positioning your service and your authority as quick as you can. Stop. Let the other person talk. Ask really good questions, right? So this goes kind of down that consultative sales process, right? You have to actually be curious. You have to actually like people, and you have to actually want to get to know them. And when you do that, you become authentic, right? You actually become someone people want to know. And so whether you're selling 7, 8, 9-figure services, enterprise level stuff, or network marketing, multi-level marketing, it doesn't matter, because we're genuinely approaching and having real conversations with real people. And we're getting rid of the agenda of trying to sell everybody something. MLM is a world that's notorious for that, right? Like, it's how quick can I get you to buy my product, which is great. But you can get there by going the long way, which will actually have a higher close rate, more retention, better, deeper relationships, and you'll get referrals quicker, connections quicker, and way more results.
Of course, Devin, of course. And when you talk about, being curious, especially to a prospect, then they become serious, then they become suspicious. And when you talk of curiosity, you talk about, curiosity killed the cat. And that is where we will also come to the cat cafe thing. So let me understand it then, because everyone knows you are not building some, long-term relationship. It is going to ultimately come to about, some product or service. And that is where the suspicion comes in. How do you avoid this? Because it is a fact. Some stupid people, they will act, they will join you on LinkedIn, and within 3 seconds, they will send you about some product and services. But those are very, very limited mindset people. But then some people are smart. They will take maybe a 1 day, 2 day, a week or so. How do you then convey the impression? How do people then refer to you? Because refer you to someone else. Do they say this is some guy who wants to talk to you about what? About cats and dogs? No, you can't say. It's about something else. How do you ensure that even while they are talking about what you do, what you may sell, you still come out as someone, looking at a genuine connection with that person? And secondly, how do you know that that person will be interested in me? It has to be about equals. Can two unequal situations bring to the real sort of relationship and network building? Help us understand that, Devin.
Yeah, some great questions in there, and great comments, and real things people struggle with. So the first thing is, I never keep score. So my agenda is I want to add value to whoever I'm meeting as fast as I can, as often as I can. And that's my intention, period. Because if I go beyond that, that's where you start to get in those trouble areas where we're asking, where we have sales or commission breath, or like it starts to feel inauthentic. So even my first follow-up message. So if I met you at a networking event, the language I use in my follow-up message is, hey, it was great meeting you at whatever event, whether it was webinar, in person, doesn't matter. I enjoy briefly learning about you and your business, or you and what you do. I'd love to set up a time to learn more about you so that I can make some strategic connections for you. Here's a link to my calendar. I'm looking forward to chatting. Everything about the language is about the other person, and it's about how I can help them. That gets me the meeting, right? So that's something I can control. I can control the language, and then I can position to open up an opportunity for a meeting. If I use that messaging in LinkedIn, if I use it via email, my book rate is really high because people are like, oh, well, this is interesting. This is not the usual sales approach, and it's all about me. Well, okay, fine, Devin, fine. I'll take a meeting. When we get on the meeting, this is where most people fail. They can do the first part. They go through their network and they start booking meetings, but they get in the meeting and then they jump into trying to like, this is my thing. Let me sell it. Let me sell it. Let me position. Let me no. So then there's a structure to that, right? I ask people, tell me your story. How do we get here? Where are you going? What are your goals? What's in the way? That should take the majority of the meeting. That gives me the ability to make connections or add value that solve your problems because you gave me the challenges. You told me what's in your way. And it gives me enough information that when I make direct introductions to you following our meeting, which is the number one way to add value, I can edify you properly. Because the most powerful introduction is when I know enough about you in that first meeting that I can introduce you to 2, 3, 4 people in my network and edify both parties. And I can say, hey, you have to meet Steve because Steve is an expert at this, this, and this, and he's targeting these kind of clients, which is who you're targeting. Hey, Steve, I want to introduce you to Joe. Joe's in this industry. He's amazing. And I can edify both parties. What that does is it creates a real connection and a 95, 96% book rate of those introductions turning into meetings. So that's, again, going kind of a level deeper to the language used. How do I get value out of it is when I make introductions following a meeting, I have permission to follow up. So 2 to 3 weeks after I make introductions. So if I have a meeting with you today, I make a couple connections tomorrow, 2 to 3 weeks from now, I have a task in my CRM saying, hey, follow up with Bob about those connections. And I'll send you an email, go, hey, how are those introductions to these 4 people? Now I have permission to follow up with you. And I have permission to follow up with those 4 people I connected you to. So now it allows me to stay in conversation. I also train by doing. So because I'm curious and asking questions, because I'm edifying you and making you feel valued, and because I'm driving connections to you, I am teaching you how to do exactly what I want, which is to give me connections. Now, what happens is, yes, I make 1,000+ connections a year, and I receive 30 to 40% of whatever I send, I get back. So if I send 1,000 a year, I'm going to get 300 to 400 back. 300 to 400 genuine high caliber connections a year will change your world.
Absolutely, absolutely, Devin. So tell me, do we have the time, that luxury, that patience, that skill to build up connections and wait one day that it will transform my life? Who is this networking for? Is it for individuals, private business people, small business owners? Is it for can it be applicable in for salespeople, people who have to meet those targets? Because by the time you may build connection, the industry may fold, something, because it has a very fast rate of change, especially in the backdrop of artificial intelligence. You got to solve the pain problem now, today, till tomorrow, day after tomorrow. That never comes. Help us understand in that backdrop.
Yeah, so the system works for everyone, which is the joy of it, because it's authentic, it's timeless, and there's no weird games being played. And so that's the first part of why it works. I've used the same system in all industries, all clients, all sizes. My biggest clients are business owners, sales professionals, and ultra high net worth individuals. The biggest complaint is, hey, I'm protective of my time and calendar, so I'm going to limit who I meet. As soon as we shift this mindset to limiting who we meet, or making assumptions about the people in front of us, or making assumptions about it, we're already failing, because we think we're the smartest person. We're not, right? We have to be genuine and curious. Speed is a question, right? And so I have a fast exercise I tell everyone, right? You probably have a network right now. In the social media world, you talked about degrees of separation. We are so close to people via LinkedIn, Facebook, pick a platform, right? you can go right now to that network and reach out to 3 to 5 people you haven't talked to in a while. You can send them a check-in email. Hey, checking in. It's been a while since we connected. What's new and exciting? Any new challenges? Hey, I'd love to reconnect with you and catch up so that I can make sure I'm on the lookout for who to connect you with. You can start filling your calendar, right? We can control that. If we can get people into meetings, that's where we can mine for information. We can ask those deep questions, which start to tell us, what are they up to? What are they doing? Where are they networking? Who are they selling to? What's working for them? What's not working for them? And also we can discover, sure, are they a fit for our service? My next meeting today, right after this, is that I was introduced to someone because they said, hey, you have to meet Devin. He seems to know a lot of people. I know you want to grow your network. You should chat. We chatted. I sent him some introductions. I sent him a book. And then he's like, hey, our team needs to get together because we want to build something out. Great, right? When they're curious, and because you've been authentic, they will raise their hand and say, hey, sell me your product or service, right? And yes, all the sales tactics and skills and things can come into play once you've built the trusted relationship, but you got to do the groundwork first. Now, another example of speed, one project I'm working on, it took 8 meetings. I was referred to someone in the JV partner space. I had a great conversation with her. It turned out to be a phone call because she was driving. We chatted. I said, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for events and stages. He said, no worries. I have someone I just talked to last week. She's holding a mastermind in 2 weeks. I think they're sold out, but let me introduce you. Text introduction. She introduces us. We end up getting into a sold out event at a discounted rate with a lot of benefits, right? That one event will generate a dozen deals for us. But had I not taken the first meeting and been curious, made connections to her to build credibility, I wouldn't have received the introduction. And so for salespeople, they're just chasing numbers, but they're chasing the wrong numbers, right? If we can chase bigger, deeper connections where we have more advocates in the market referring us, making connections for us, being on the lookout at events, trade shows, and other places, what happens in that 90, 120 day mark is this tsunami of referrals and connections start coming back, and your calendar will perpetually be full, but it'll be full with higher caliber, deeper relationships.
Right, David. So in present, forget about building new connections. Even in the present situation, we are not able to utilize our own network. Our own clients, we are either very hesitant to ask them for referrals, or they themselves are very, hesitant to give those referrals. As soon as it's not a very easy thing for either asking and then giving. They do not want to just commit till they actually know you that well. How do you then break this chain?
Yeah, so I have two pieces of advice for this one. First goes back to the ask, right? So often when we look at client referral programs or our current network and asking for things, again, we ask for them to position us to sell somebody, right? Hey, I sell, pest control services. I'm looking for homeowners who need that. Okay, great, right? Now you're making them feel awkward because you have to position someone to be sold. Instead, you could say, hey, I sell pest control services. Great referral partners are realtors, mortgage lenders, and other people who sell in homes. Do you have any of those people in your network that you love? If so, I'd love to connect with them. The language changed. And instantly, even in your own head, if you're listening to this, you probably went, yeah, you know what? I know a few people like that. I'd be happy to connect you with these 2 realtors. I know that one mortgage lender. Oh, and I know this in-home window door sales guy. I can connect you to all those people. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting introductions to these people who are in people's homes, working with homeowners, and have access to your ideal clients. Again, if we shift the ask, it makes it so much easier to be referred. The other thing is you got to have a book, right? This is one of my biggest tips and tricks, right? It's not as hard as you think to have a book, but if you can build your credibility and authority, it's a great way for people to introduce you. So I have tons of referral partners where I send them copies of my book, and it empowers them to go, hey, you know what? Let me send you a copy of Devin's book. You should just see what he has to say. And so now instead of them trying to sell something, they're just providing value. And if that person goes, hey, Devin, yeah, I read chapter 6 and I was interested, they'll raise their hand. And so that starts to build that high-end, deeper, bigger funnel. And so that helps with your referral kit, which is a great tool. So any piece of content or anything you can give away for free or give away at a discounted rate, again, moves away from selling to providing value. So those are kind of my 2 tips for how do we unlock our current network and our current client base.
Absolutely, absolutely, David. We will come to your book after this, but first, let me understand a bit about your cat cafe. Is it a very special place where people can come and their mind gets ignited and they will start creating that one connection which will change their life?
Yeah, so the Cat Cafe is probably the most random and fun business. I did it with my wife. We saw the business model in Japan, right? So you pay per hour to go spend time with cats. So we decided, hey, we're going to launch it in, we're in Reno, Nevada. So launch it in our city. There's not one here. And so we opened it, and we opened it with this intent that we wanted a coffee shop that people would spend more time at. Yes, there's a lot of time spent at coffee shops, but we wanted it to be kind of another level. And so it allowed us to open a space for the community to come together. And there's a lot of actual big value with senior citizens, people with disabilities, people with mental illness, spending time with pets and animals. Great. So we solved that problem and provided value. And then as a business owner, because we both own other businesses, it allowed us to create a community space where we could host people. And so one big thing we learned there is hosting people, right, for experiences, whether that's your own business or any other experience you can create for someone, whether it's a food tasting, a wine tasting, a coffee or tea tasting, whatever it is. If you can host an experience and invite people in, that's a great way to build deep relationships because you have them as a captive audience. They're already getting value, especially if you don't charge them for the experience. And now you're building that authority because they're going, hey, I trust this guy or gal. They're providing value to us. And so it was a super fun project for us. We did some cool stuff. We launched the business in 45 days. We sold it to an employee 6 months later. So lots of cool stuff there. And again, a huge takeaway is, creating an experience, inviting people into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking of cats, you see, as they say, a cat has 9 lives, but how do we make those network in this life itself? We are human beings. How do we do that? So, what can we learn from your book? Tell us a bit about your book. Show it for the audience also.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I encourage you to grab a copy. I have the perspective of I never hold back. And so this book is everything and anything when it comes to building your network. And so I go through everything from how to identify, your ideal client, who has access to them. So that's a connection expansion exercise, going through the exact scripts you can use to book meetings, going through how you conduct your connection meetings, kind of questions you ask, how to follow up, what the follow-up script looks like, how to add value, how to introduce people and make those connections, how to leverage your CRM and task management to support it. Everything and anything you need. If you are trying to build a high-value network that generates connections, and I want to make that distinction, right? Connections, right? So those are open and honest introductions to anyone, right? Not just referrals where we're only chasing prospects. If you want to unlock that, fill your calendar up and start elevating your network, this book will lay the foundation. And yes, there are services and things that can help you with, but you don't need it. Like literally the book will do everything, and you'll have success with it. So I encourage you to check it out. And then I am accessible. Ask any questions you want. Hopefully, again, there was some value here, and maybe you have some follow-up questions too.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, from your book, and all the things that can take them to their, dream situation where they can build by building up a great network. So, what's the best way for them to connect with you, David?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, devinsizemore.com, DevinSizemore.com. There's links to everything I do on there. Social media, I'm on all the platforms. If you want to learn about book writing, there's links to that. Links to my book are there. It's live on Amazon in every country. So yeah, lots of ways. And if none of that works, just Google my name and you'll probably find me somehow.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.